History laid the foundation
that informs our conversation. Welcome to the classroom.
from the church to the streets and even in the suites and all around the world. I'm gonna keep it real in the classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom. Fannie Lou's classroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Fannie Lou's Classroom. Of course, we're always super excited about the guests we have in the classroom where we have conversations around the intersection of theology, race, politics, and gender. And so today we're going to have an amazing conversation. It's on the heels of November 4th, which we didn't know how the 4th is going to go. But we knew we needed to have some kind of conversation around what does this whole political thing mean? What is politics? And it's more than just going to the ballot box to cast your vote. And so we have an expert here today to talk about government policy. Our other guest, I'm going to go ahead and bust him out. Our other guest, former Mayor Pro Tem, my friend of over 20 years, Casey Thomas, dumped us because he wanted to go to a convention he was having with cigars or something. You know, the brothers getting together. So he dumped us today, but it's all good. The women going to hold it down on today. But very seriously, we appreciate all of what Casey does and what he brings to the table. But we're going to have a great conversation on today. Hope you're tuning in. If you're tuning in, share, like, subscribe, let folks know, so they can watch it later if they can't tune in now and get a different kind of meal for lunch on today that can feed their minds and their soul. And so, as always, I got to shout out our FLC team. We're a small crew, but we make it happen. So, Ashley not here today, but she made it happen before today to get us ready. And so Cheryl decided to come back from an extended vacation. So she's back in the house on today. And then, of course, we have Brooke, who always makes sure we have amazing sound and that we look good on our YouTube and all of our postings look amazing. So thank you, FLC team, Brooke, Ashley, and Cheryl. We appreciate that so much. So listen, let me go ahead and introduce our guest for today who didn't back out on us like Casey did. No, very seriously, an amazing young woman who is very knowledgeable, a lot of wisdom, and so we want to be able to really engage like we always do every week in some knowledge transfer, how we're all bringing our individual bricks to this table to really build into this classroom so that we can all learn and grow together to be more informed citizens, right? So we can be more engaged and have more to say about what happens in our lives individually, but also collectively as community. So we have Priscilla Barbour Randle. She leads the policy and communications at Primergy Solar.
Yes.
A primer developer of utility scale solar and battery energy storage projects. With over a decade of experience in government affairs, energy policy, she oversees Primergy's state, federal, legislative strategy, corporate communications, marketing, and stakeholder engagement. Priscilla was recently appointed to the board of directors for Beacon Hill, a nonprofit dedicated to providing students with high-quality, high-impact learning opportunities. She also serves on the board of Politic Engagement Fund and the Texas Legislative Black Caucus Foundation. Priscilla is an active member of several community and civic organizations, including Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and the Links Incorporated, where she continues to champion equity, education, and civic engagement. Priscilla holds a Master of Public Service and Administration from the Bush School of Government in Public Service at Texas A&M University with a concentration in state and local government policy and management. She received a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Sociology from Prairie View A&M University, where she served as the student body president. Let's welcome the well-abled, wisdom-bearer, knowledge-giving Priscilla Barbour Randle to the classroom.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and appreciate the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's so funny. I tell people I do energy policy by day, and I advocate for civic engagement and social justice and voting by night. So this truly is a passion of mine since as early as I can remember. So I'm happy to be here.
Oh, yes. And so we love, I read the bio. Now you're going to hear it come out. And so it's one thing to know, to have the book knowledge. It's another thing to be able to talk about how it really works in the real world.
Right,
And
right.
that's what we really want to bring into this space so people can, we do want to talk about structurally how it should be.
Right.
But here's how it really works so we can be informed and know how we need to engage. So before we really get started, I have to pause and let's talk about Tuesday, November 4th, election night in America.
Yeah.
First thing I'm going to do is shout out all the black women. Brooke, I believe that. Come on, Brooke.
Get some claps.
So I'm going to shout out Sharon Owens, first black mayor, woman in Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
Dorsey Applers in Albany, New York, mayor. Mary Sheffield, first black woman, Detroit, Michigan. Then we have Connie Alsobrook from Conyers, Georgia, who also won mayor. And then we have Vi Lyles in Charlotte, who's a 5-time mayor, which I didn't know she had won that many times until we did the research, right? So shout out to those black women who came through making history on Tuesday. And then I want to highlight, because I think this continues to show, and we'll talk a little bit about this, what I'm going to call, hopefully more people becoming more aware. And now that what's happening in this country is impacting people at the kitchen table, right, in their living room.
Yes.
That they're now saying, okay, something is definitely, we got to shake something up. Because in Mississippi,
Yeah.
of all places, right, you had Johnny Dupree and Teresa Gillespie who broke that supermajority in the state Senate. And so we can only hope and pray that they then take these victories,
Right.
right, and use those to really push back. And if nothing else, to stop the harm that's being caused. So,
And if I could add
Yes,
to
please.
your list of just huge election wins in Georgia, the Public Utility Commission, which is typically, you know, a race that people probably don't pay a lot of attention to. Here in Texas, it's not an elected position. But in Georgia, 2 Democrats flipped PUC seats, one being a black woman, for the first time in 20 years. So when you talk about those kitchen table issues, they ran on energy affordability and the importance of making sure people can pay for their bills and making sure that the regulatory system that's in place meets the needs of all people. So you're seeing these kitchen table messages win really big races. And those are statewide seats.
yes.
So these are 2 new statewide offices in a state that's historically been, you know, very one party.
Right.
I'm not going to be partisan, but very one party dominated. And now you have 2 Democrats serving on the Public Utility Commission in Georgia, which really controls your day-to-day life more than you think.
Correct.
So definitely a huge night across the country.
I wonder why you picked up on the energy piece. And I was going to get
That's
to them,
my
but go ahead. I'm
background.
glad you got to that. I was going to talk about them, right? And then, you know, I'm going to go ahead and give a shout out to, he ain't my mayor, but he my mayor by proxy. Mayor Andre Dickens won another term in Georgia in the ATL. And then Jaden Williams, young brother, the youngest mayor to be elected in Stockbridge, Georgia. We're going to give a shout out to the young, he's 22 years old.
That's awesome.
So, you know, he's in this thing early.
Yeah.
So we want to give a shout out to him. And then, you know, let's talk about the governor's races too, right? Because then I want to get into also what we have to do post-election. So, you know, Abigail Wright in Virginia won governor. But what I've been told is that on her transition team, there's not one black person. Right?
I was not aware of that.
And we saw the numbers and who voted for Abigail. So, Abby.
Yeah, I know some people who know her and her team. So
Talk to them.
Hopefully that changes very.
So that
very
needs to
soon.
change. And I know some folks, I'm going to name names that when we do that, but I know some folks who are already like who are going to be managing that. And then Mickey Sherrill obviously became the second woman governor of New Jersey, but first Democratic woman to win governorship. So, and then Alicia Johnson, Public Service Commissioner in Georgia, is the first black woman to hold that elective executive office.
And it's such an important
And it's
office.
critical.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you saw Keisha Lance Bottoms has like 40%.
Yeah.
The vote going into this
top vote getter,
gubernatorial in the Democratic primary.
Yeah.
So you know a lot
Yeah.
of things happening around, and of course we know that Prop 50 passed in California, and setting that stage for California to redraw their congressional maps. But of course, you know the Republicans have already filed a lawsuit to block that proposition from going forward, which you know you got to expect that, right? So I think where we're starting from, and then of course, let's go ahead and shout out the main one everybody talk about is Zoran Mandami in New York City, 30-something-year-old, right? who didn't just win, he beat an established family. Right. With the name recognition that a lot of black folks, as they were saying, grandmamas was like, oh, yeah, I like that Cuomo.
Right.
We know why we like it, but we like that Cuomo. As
former governor.
Former governor
huge.
On top of that. And the money that was given to his campaign. Like, so to me, Mondami's win represents more than just he beat this storied family, political family, but it's all the money that was poured into Cuomo's campaign.
Right.
It was about the people, the mess, and that's what I think, to me, what I got out of his win, which I think we need to pick up on across the country, from local to state to federal, focus on those issues.
Yes.
Right. Zero didn't even fool with Trump.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't talk. He wasn't anti-Trump. He was more like, this what you need. Like, I mean, he's a democratic socialist. So he was really about, here's the pain I know people are feeling. I'm tapping into your pain. I'm tapping into what's important to you and what you're concerned about. Come on, you in New York, you talking about rent, you're like, boom, you got my attention already.
But his message resonated so broadly where the people in other states were like, wait, we don't have an election today. I can't vote for him. But his 3 talking points were very clear.
Very.
Rent, we need to freeze the rent. Buses, we need faster buses. Universal child care, period. And it's a really good case study in message discipline and making sure that your audience, they know exactly what you stand for. I think so many times candidates, the feedback that you hear is that, well, we don't really know what they represent, or we don't know what they care about, or what they're working on. That message discipline, I think, was excellent. And he was willing to meet the voters where they were.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that was at the bodega, in Central Park, in the nightclubs on Sunday night before election.
Right.
And it just showed that, you know, when you run a big campaign, you have to be consistent in your messaging, and you have to know what your people need, and you have to get the message to where they are.
And I think in addition to that, and this is what we see, like with a Representative Jasmine Crockett, for example, what we still see in Representative Ayanna Priestley, right? It is this new, I'm saying Democrat, right? They're the ones who are like, we're not stuck into the status quo. Right? We're not stuck in traditionalism.
Right.
We're not going to do it because it's supposed to be done this way. I'm not waiting on you. Like, Zerron really didn't get the big endorsements from the party that he should have, right? He's like, okay, no problem. So I think people also saw this as finally we can see ourselves, right, in this quote unquote, in that party.
Right. And I think to your point about endorsements, people are watching who did not endorse and when they endorsed. And I think over the next year and a half, a lot of candidates have a lot to learn from the races this past week.
Definitely. And I think as folks on the ground, those of us who organize and mobilize people, I think it's a lesson for us too, right? In the ways in which we even hold candidates accountable, how we now begin to shift, how we even engage with candidates. In our well, we know some of us already do that, but hopefully that broadens, and we don't fall into that trap of name recognition, right? So you look at Congressional District 18 in Houston, who's in the runoff.
Yeah.
You know, just in terms of, it was a crowded field.
Very crowded, yeah.
So, you know, you have 2 people who emerged out of that, and probably, you know, I'm thinking Representative Yolanda Jones, people probably thought would come out as part of in that runoff, right? So I think it's all about how we need to, what's the message? Who has the real message? And how we even, as opposed, and I'm just saying we in the general sense.
Right.
When we are talking to candidates, I think we always go into what's your plan? What you going to do? We have to begin to say, no. Here's what we're asking for, and here's what we want. Here's our vision for it. You know, are you on board with that? Right. And so I think to your point, but Mondami definitely, I say, is definitely given like a framework, and I think that's what people are going to start looking for. Now, where is that message? Because you saw people saying, finally, they have a backbone, or finally they're bucking the system. I think that is what people are tapped into, that energy, right? Because they want to see somebody who really, what are you going to do for real,
right?
Like,
how's it going to impact my day-to-day life? Like, we have to get out of the pie in the sky.
Exactly.
Theoretically, this is what we want to do. Like, practically, what does this mean every day? And why is it important that you're the person that's out there advocating for these issues for us?
Correct. So now I think so let's talk a little bit about, let me talk about this before we talk about that, because this also is part of it. So here in Texas, obviously, we had an election around 17 constitutional amendments. So the fact that it's constitutional, meaning it's getting ready to be embedded, which means it makes it harder to change.
Very hard to repeal, yep.
So we had 17 amendments. There was, people around the state I know did several webinars, passed out literature that broke down the amendments so folks could understand them. And so some of those that passed are going to impact people everyday lives, right? Sure. And give more power to what I would call certainly a oppressive government regime in the state of Texas, in our governor and lieutenant governor.
It definitely gives a lot of power, especially when it comes to judges.
Yes.
These are elected judges. And there's now, with this a constitutional amendment, this review council.
Prop 12.
Yes, yeah. Prop 12 that allows the governor to appoint more people to basically review the actions of judges. I guess we'll just have to see how that turns out. These are elected officials, duly elected by their constituents to serve in their respective capacities. So to know that they could possibly no longer serve in that capacity because there's now this board that's able, or that's been expanded and able to review their work, to say, yes, you're either operating as you should as a judge or you aren't, is a little concerning for me, and something we definitely need to pay attention to, especially in big counties in Dallas, Harris, where you see a large Tarrant County, where you see a large representation of judges who look like the community that they serve in. It's something we definitely want to keep an eye on. All 17 amendments passed, which I was really surprised by. I was really surprised that all 17 passed.
And me too. And I think for some people, because reading it on its surface, the way, but it's intentional. The wording is intentional, right? To make you feel, that sounds good. That seemed right to me.
Right. And then I think some of it too is not only does that sound good, that seems right. Like, that's already the law. So I guess we should just put it in the Constitution, i.e. being a U.S. citizen to vote in elections.
Which is put a pin there. I'm going to come back to that one because I want to talk about how people, I'm going to come back to that. But I want to go back to the judges, right? Because I'll say it, most of the significant, it could be weaponized. I think it could be weaponized in terms of now the governor having an expanded reach, or it could be an overreach as well, right? It could create that. So I'll just say it. In many of these areas, Dallas, Fort Worth, I would even say to a degree, San Antonio, we think about black and brown communities, and it's black judges. It's people of color who, a lot of the majority, and black women in particular in Dallas County, right? I'm very concerned about that. Yeah. And so I thought, go ahead.
And this is a state government that prioritized like small government, right? But this seems like expanded government.
Expansion is fine, so it gives us control, right? And it passed like 62% to 38%.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So that's a lot, right? And so then you talk about, now let's talk about, I think it was Proposition 17, right, about the language clarifying that a person who is not a U.S. citizen cannot vote in the state. Now, to your point, they probably said, like, we don't want illegals voting. This is almost like SB 1 several years ago. They're creating a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
Right.
You already cannot vote if you're not a legal citizen, right? So what is it about putting it
What
in?
is it?
Why are you putting it in the Constitution? Why you feel the need to do that, right? This just me. I go off of, I'm the kind of person, you can do one thing, and I'm like, okay, maybe that's a one-off. You may do two. I'm like, okay. But I look for patterns. And I've seen enough with this government, this governor, lieutenant governor, to know something's going on with this proposition. It's not just, we're going to put, it's something else going on here that we're going to see unfold.
Yeah, because my first reaction was like, why? Why are we doing this?
There's no need. So whenever they're doing, I'm like, it's something else they're going to be doing. Yes, and so we're gonna see what that is, but it's going to come out.
Only time will tell.
Time will tell, but I don't trust it based on experience, right? But one of the things, and then like Prop 10, I think that overwhelmingly passed, right? That was around the amendment that would temporarily lower homeowners' property taxes if their homes destroyed by fire. So, that was probably the one that passed by the most.
Right.
But very surprised at some of the amendments, definitely 15, 16, and 17, just the margin, which to your point lets me know either people didn't understand it or they feel like, that makes sense.
Right.
And so to your point, the need for us to, I know a lot of people did what they could to make sure people were informed, they understood. because like we say, it's not just go vote, go vote, go vote. It's like be an informed
voter,
educated voter.
And the other thing I noticed too, a lot of people just skipped. If they didn't understand, it seemed like they skipped some of the amendments based on the numbers that I saw from the Secretary of State's office. There were some amendments that had more votes than others. And I'm like, why were people skipping around? And I think it's because, well, maybe I don't know what ad valorem taxes are. Like, how do I vote for something I don't understand? So also, because you're not an educated voter, you're abstaining.
Right,
Which also
correct.
doesn't help.
Correct. It's almost like the
it's
protest vote, right?
Right, exactly. So how do we, like, in plain language, explain, like, what capital gains tax are?
Correct.
And why we want to make sure that that's still an option available if we choose as a state to tax capital gains. Currently, we do not. Again, why is this something we need to put in the
exactly
Constitution?
right
To say that it's banned forever.
ever?
And taking that option off the table, not knowing what the future economic situation of Texas may be.
Right.
So I think we need to have a conversation about, one, understanding what's on the ballot, two, making sure voters have the right resources and they know where they can go to get good information, nonpartisan information, neutral information. I always plug the League of Women Voters just
Yes, me
because their
too.
website, I see you have their
They're
handout.
top tier. I go there. I mean, it's a one-stop shop.
It's a
right?
one-stop shop.
You don't have to reinvent
you can
the
get
wheel.
it in paper, audio, video,
Everything.
whatever you want.
Your
It's
sample
there.
ballot, you can see your ballot before you get there.
Right.
You can go ahead and fill it out and say, okay, I memorized what I got to check.
And
you know
it tells
what I mean?
you, here's the pros of
Right.
this amendment, here are the cons, this is what people are saying who are for it and
Right.
against it. And I think just making sure people use those resources and they know what they're going and voting on. Another thing, too, is just making sure people know the process of voting, right? So I know some people, they were planning to use those resources, but they're like, oh, I can't have my phone. So just making sure we educate people, like, yes, do your research, know what your positions are before you go in, but also write it on a piece of paper,
take
or
it in
take a
with
piece
you.
of paper,
Right.
put it on a sticky note. Exactly. Take it with you, because I think sometimes that's also a limitation, and why people may feel like, oh, I don't know what this is, so I'm just going to not vote for it or vote for it.
And we're going to talk about the fact that, a lot of people didn't vote.
About that part, we have, 18.4 million voters in the state of Texas.
And was it 3 million that voted?
Yeah.
Something like
Right?
that?
Or a little over 2.9. Yeah.
I mean, that, I don't know the quick percentage, but I know it's low.
low.
And
Not sufficient.
So it's also, and for me, I don't know, right? It's almost like the message at least we tried to send was, okay, we see what happens when we don't participate. We're in the mess we're in now.
Yeah.
So this is why everything matters. So now that all 17 have passed, the ones that we know are going to impact us the most,
Right. Yeah.
it's done. Like there's no going down, there's no marching going down to Austin.
Right.
Because we didn't show up. And so I'm wondering also, Priscilla, is one, like, definitely how we make sure people have the resources, access to, and not giving them then I think it's not giving them too much.
Right.
So that's why I think something like the league, I always tell people, scan this QR code, go straight to the league, you can find your ballot, you can find your, wherever you live, they're statewide.
Right.
You find your particular, place. So that's one thing. But I think the other thing is that we too, as voters, we are, and non-voters, those who just don't participate at all, we have to also say, you know what? If it's going to get better, I do have to do my part.
Right.
So I am going to have to get registered. And I do need to know why I'm going to go vote, right? It's almost, I think it was in Houston, they were stopping just random people like, did you vote today? It's like, oh, it's an election today? One man was like, "Are we voting today?" Like,
yeah, I was getting my hair done on Tuesday. They were like, "Don't you work around or with government or something?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do." He's like, "What are we voting on?" So in there, I'm like, "Okay, guys, go to this website. Here's some information you can get. Let's check your voter registration status.
Right.
Also, here's your state rep for the area. Look at what he said about these propositions. Let me send this to you." And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna share this with everybody in the salon." But, like, that's the day of the election we're having this conversation.
And we hope you get there before 7.
Right.
Or in line at least.
Right.
But, yeah, so I think I don't know, I'm thinking, like, how bad does it have to get?
Well, I think we have to have a serious conversation about how to address voter apathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have these huge swings in Texas. Like, you can have 60% turnout for a presidential election, and then the following year, we're talking about, like, 3-4%. Coming to vote on these very critical issues. But how do we keep that drumbeat going between like the big ticket elections and then, you know, these constitutional amendments, like you said, will have a bigger impact on our day-to-day lives.
And I wonder if it's language too, right? Maybe we stop calling it off year election.
Right. Because it's never
not off year.
No election is off year.
So I think it's also about how we begin to show people like this is our presidential, right? Like it's just as important, the importance of it. So some is maybe how we even treat it. And when we say it's an off year election, go vote off year, what that mean?
And I think we have to talk about it all the time. You know, we build momentum up to these elections.
Right.
And it's like, okay, we know there's an election coming next November. So we have a year to start having these conversations. We can't wait until August of next year.
Right.
It's time to register voters, and we're hitting the voter registration deadline, and candidates are coming to churches and, you know, giving their stump speeches. We have to start today educating people like, okay, we passed these constitutional amendments. What's next?
Correct.
Here's our clock. We have a year. We have a year until the next election. What's going to be on the ballot then? Okay, then we have a few months until the next legislative session. What can we expect? So just start building out the calendar now. And talking to voters now about what they can expect.
Yeah, so one of the things we're going to be attempting to do is what we're calling Freedom Summer 2.0 is just that.
Yes.
Starting in January.
Yeah.
But then it won't be just January through midterm. This is like this to be an ongoing. We're constantly engaging and connecting with people just around what I'm like when you talked about before about this whole political ecosystem.
Yes.
So that we're not just, because if we just think about it as voting time, then we do this. Because this also programs people like, oh, well, I don't do anything until, now when we voting, do you have a voting guy? Like we're always doing something to show them the whole ecosystem is always working.
It's always working.
So
always.
Like right now, when you start thinking about what's the policy agenda for 27.
Exactly.
Not in January 27.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, and Priscilla's going to be helping us do some of that. So I'm super excited about that.
Because that's what I like to nerd out over. Like, okay, what bills passed? What didn't pass? What can we expect to be reintroduced?
Yes.
Like, how can we start building positions around these things?
Correct.
Who are the stakeholders? Who should we start talking to? Can we build a coalition here? Who else cares about this? Like, these are the things I have the good fortune of thinking about both professionally and personally, because this, like I said, this is a passion for me.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, big businesses, that's what they do.
Correct.
From as soon as the session ends, it's like, okay, let's build out our game plan about how policy will impact our ability to function as an organization or as a corporation. We have to think that same way as informed voters and people who care about what happens. Okay, this passed. These are the players. How can we make sure we're positioned for the next session so we don't feel like we're being so reactive?
Correct.
We can go in and say, here's our legislative proposal for the session before the bill filing deadline.
Right.
Let's talk about it. Are there opportunities for us to have some of these things introduced? But that comes from building relationships, studying, and knowing what's coming or what to expect. And building a game plan for that.
Yeah, reading, writing, and researching.
Yes, lots of that.
You got to do lots of that, and
it's not sexy work.
It's not.
I know we're at the church, but
we say it. That's how we say it. Pastor Haynes say it like that sometimes too. I just said it the other day. It's not, but necessary work, and I think that goes back to this. This is my stump speech to everybody even in our justice ministry. It's a place for everybody. Everybody doesn't have to go testify. Somebody might like just digging in. Let me check the computer. Oh, I found this. It's about us being able to say, here's where everybody can fit in. And that's what we really hope to do with Freedom Summer 2.0. It's going to be expansive and vast enough that we can say everybody can plug in. I already told you where you're plugging in, so I can't wait. I'm so excited to really build with you and to imagine and to use our creativity to really craft something that can really be beneficial as we move this throughout the state, starting in North Texas. So, I think that's the biggest thing we have to do. And I think even to me, it's always also using new language and how we understand this process. That we have to craft new language for even the new electorate, which is going to be our Gen Zers.
Right.
Like it's even
and let me say about Gen Z.
Yeah.
They are tuned in and they care very deeply, right? These are kids that have experienced so many things in their short lives. Like I think about my niece who's a junior in college, right? She's not missed an election since she turned 18. And that's because she's frustrated, right? They understand, they have this deep frustration. Like, college is expensive. It's hard to find a good job.
Yeah.
I lived through a global pandemic, or missed half of high school because of a global pandemic. And my life has been so drastically impacted by the policy decisions that were made for me. And I think they're now at a place where they're old enough to say, now I'm making the decisions. And they are looking for a place to, have their frustrations heard, and they want representatives who listen to them. So
correct.
I think there's a really sweet spot with Gen Z. I know they get a lot of flack. I like it. They bring the energy I think that we need.
Definitely.
And then the reality is, here in Texas, the numbers are undeniable. Texas, over the next few years, will be heavily populated by young people. How do we target them now and get them a part of the process and give them a place where they can channel that frustration into real change?
Yes, for sure. And when I think that, and just how I view the work, to your point, and it just goes back to how I understand the work, is that it should always be transgenerational.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if you look at it that way, no one is ever left out of the conversation or at the table. It's not, we're going to talk about this as older people and then go get the young people. No, they're already there.
Right.
We're all having a conversation together.
Yeah.
And if you're older and you just didn't grow chronologically, then you have a lot of wisdom you can share.
Oh, for sure.
Right. So I think it's, how do we also get back to what I would say is a kind of an African-centered way of understanding what it means to be in community with one another, which opens up the table and the space for everybody's voice to be heard. Right. That we all say, here's what we're looking for, here's what we want, and how do we do, so that we're not fighting each other or clashing or saying, you don't need to be over here, you don't need to be here, you're young, or like, y'all old, y'all need to move out the way.
Right.
Now, some people do need to move out the way, but that's us. It's also understanding when your role shifts in the village, right? It's okay to...
And being willing to step back. Yeah.
Because it's not that you don't still have value. Now you're just you're just playing a different position.
Absolutely.
You need to bring like a 20-something loan, start gear. If they want to run for office, you start grooming them so they can, so that it's not just you because you're young, you need to be in office.
You're young, you're capable, you're willing to do the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's all of, and we just have to nurture that. And I think we kind of get into these generational wars that just,
Well, we could talk about this part alone
and I just think they're manufactured to a degree, right? And so when you add on social media to it, where you now have AI generated content that looks real to people, where depending on your algorithm, you're feeding your mind with probably something that's disinformation, or you have a point of view that may not be correct, but because you're getting so much saying you're right, or you keep saying
confirmation bias.
Correct.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's a lot we have, I want to say against us. We have a lot we have to manage and a lot we have to sift through, and we have to be able to slow down for a moment, to take the time to say, okay, how are we going to move forward? What does it mean to be in community? Which means you have to turn this stuff off and talk to each other first. Before you go here. So now you're, kind of your baseline. We have levels set in a way where we all start in the same place.
Right.
So now we go out and start getting info. When we bring intel back, we can sift through that a lot better because our mind is clear and it's just not filled with a lot of.
And we have to be very clear on like what's our end goal from the beginning.
Right.
And like we all need to buy in on that. We all need to agree. This is what we're working toward.
Right.
And don't change or deviate from that. And it's like we have to stay committed to the cause. And we understand that, people have different priorities. But I think, like you said, when we're in community together and we're focused on this ultimate outcome that we're all working toward, people are going to have to sacrifice some of that.
Oh, for sure.
Like we won't all be able to get what we want. However,
correct.
Can we work together to get an outcome that's best for everybody?
I like that you said that, and I think that's the issue, right? That's where what I'm called family conversations come in. By family meaning, to say, okay, what is it that we all can agree on?
Right.
And we're going to work toward that.
Yes.
And you may have some other things and you can go outside and work on that, but what's going to benefit the whole?
Right.
Not just some of us in the group.
Right.
But what's benefiting all of us? So things, Mondami, universal child care. Hello.
I can tell you right now, as somebody who's paying for daycare, that's the second largest bill in our house outside of our mortgage.
When I found out how much child care costs,
oh my gosh,
I was like, I see why people stay at home.
Yes.
It's cheap.
You have to have a serious conversation. Like, okay, I have a 2-year-old, right? do I want to have another kid while he's
Yeah,
still
right.
in daycare age?
Right.
Can we make that happen? I'm sure we could if we sacrifice some things, but also, do we want to do that?
Right, because you still want to, live life and do. You have some
Right.
other things and get
Look,
your
I
goals.
want to
that you
go
wanna
on
do.
vacation
Come on,
or go. If I
exactly.
want to go buy something, I can. But these are hard conversations
Right.
that all families
Yes,
are having,
correct.
regardless of your socioeconomic
That's
status.
right.
And that makes no sense, especially in a country where they say you want us to have more kids. How? We can't afford this.
Hello, precisely. It's like, who can afford to have all these kids?
On top of that, my student loans, the cost of electricity, groceries.
All the things that's supposed to be cheaper now. And so, yeah, and I think, so I think that is where we have to say, okay, and like you said, Montgomery had three things he
Three,
talked about.
and that
So
was it.
How do we come up with those things that benefit the whole and not? And I think that's part of we have to get at. And I think he did a good job at this. Is saying right the way in which he engaged was like it's not about us as individuals, but we're gonna lift everyone in New York City, right?
But I think that's what sometimes people forget. Like, this is all a group project, right? Like,
Right.
we, believe it or not, you may think you live in an island and you're independent and you're like, I got here by myself. I pulled myself by my own bootstraps. But some of us didn't have boots.
Right.
So, like, we are in this group project together. When we all thrive as a community, individually, we should thrive, right? But I think we have to get away from this, like, individualistic mindset of, like, well, it doesn't impact me. It's not my problem. Or, that's not something I
Right.
can relate to. So I should obviously be against it. And not necessarily.
And you have to make sure that you're not making decisions based on a social hierarchy or perceived supremacy, which we're seeing now with this cut and SNAP benefits. When y'all try to make it all about, it's almost like the welfare queen. Now it's y'all ghetto folks, y'all meaning black folk. What y'all gonna do because y'all don't have SNAP benefits, and but y'all seeing we're not the majority.
statistics
Come
do
on,
not
do not
reflect.
bear that out. So now they're like, what am I supposed to do? Well, I don't know. And the one with the MAGA hat who's mad at her relative because they won't give her money. And they said, well, you voted for it. So she mad at them because they won't give money when you.
Look.
So you, but that was based on they have you. That's what white supremacy. It just doesn't impact black folk, right?
Oh,
It more significantly impacts white people.
Yeah.
Because in your mind you have been fed to think, oh, well, I'm white, so I ain't black, so that means it's gonna work out for me.
And the way I think about this in politics too, right, is like people will do whatever they have to do to protect their perceived power.
Correct.
And the reality is all of the power is, I know you always say all of the power belongs to the people because we are the voters, we're the constituents, we're the decision makers. And I think there's this perception that like my proximity to power or the perceived power that I have will somehow save me. And that's not the case.
Yeah, but that's deeply rooted in America, though, right? That's not new to
Right.
even. Politics obviously has shifted and grown, and it obviously over the centuries. But at its very core, right, it was always about wealthy white landowners, men, right, who want to concentrate that power. And so obviously with the, advancements, et cetera, 60 years racial democracy, you have now a mixture, but it still comes down to people who don't have power concede their power.
Yeah.
Because those in power have led them, it's like
To believe that they're powerless.
that they're powerless, but also if you don't have it, it's because of them.
Yeah.
The othering, the scapegoating,
Oh,
as
yeah.
Renee Girard would say, French theorist Renee Girard would say, it's a scapegoating. It's bad in here because them people, the others, deport them. Now they're like, well, who gonna work here?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
you send them to then your farms are what? Closing. White farmers committing suicide at alarming rates.
It's unbelievable. Like
Right.
the policy implications of all of these
Yes,
decisions,
that's
nobody can get out of it.
Nobody.
It impacts all of
that's
us.
That's right. And the fact that's the danger
Right.
of buying into what I would like to say white domination, not supremacy. I just like nothing is supreme about whiteness, right? It's and when I say whiteness and white domination, is not just a white person. It is, to me, our social structure that was grounded in, social hierarchy.
Right.
Because you can have people who like us. Hello, Clarence Thomas. Who, win some prize, who was running for governor in Virginia, who, I can name a lot of folk, but so I'm just saying it's that notion of you got to other people so they can make sure. So we fighting over the same quarter, and then we're here with the whole dollar.
Yeah.
Right. So and I think that's what made Fred Hampton so powerful in a target, because he was like black power to black people, white power to white people, brown power to brown people, yellow power to yellow people, right? Red power to, because he was like,
everybody should have power.
Because we all should have the power, and we're the people. It rests with the people. And Roy King told the jailers when he was in the Birmingham jail, he said, "How much money y'all make?" He said, "Well, y'all need to be out here marching with us." Right? It's just, but anytime someone is disrupting that, then that's the whole purpose of othering, making you think you better, because then you'll see, well, wait a minute. And I think Lyndon Baines Johnson said, if you can make the poorest white man think he better than the black man, he won't know you picking his pocket. So I think that's also another level we have to get to in this country, where we have to like, look, y'all, we're not enemies.
Right. No,
right.
We're not.
And to your point, this policy decision been made since January is impacting everybody. Nobody is escaping this. No. And they're now, you see them coming out more like, well, I didn't know it was me. Well, I don't know how you didn't know.
And the thing is too, like, we've also coded it in political parties, right?
Right, correct.
And there's no exception either. Like, if you voted one way, it still impacts you as someone who voted another way. So I think, like, it's so polarizing, unfortunately, but the impacts are not.
That's right.
They're vast and they're broad, and nobody can escape it, like you said. So I think we just have to get out of this like us versus them mentality and fighting from our corners. Right. And we can disagree. Disagreement is fine and it's expected. But there are certain things that we should all agree on. That's decency, mutual respect, and understanding that what happens to you could also one day happen to me. And not use policy as a weapon, or not use politics as a way to create division.
And the reality is, it is weaponized. And that's the important work you're talking about. Like, how do we kind of take that power back? Right. And how do we have conversations across the board to say, no, here's the kind of policy where we all can thrive. Right. Here's about me, it's like what it means to be human. And if we can start there, I see everybody's humanity fully, not partially, but fully, then that drives us to a place, to your point, we look at not poisonous policy, but policy is life-giving. Right. And, I saw this the other day, I just have to say, and this just goes, we got work to do. So the lady says, well, now, I didn't vote for them to end the Affordable Care Act. I voted for Obamacare to end.
It's the same thing.
But you see, because they were so good at, and that's what
messaging,
yes. And I'm going to say this. Now, Mandami did a great job, but one thing, the other side, I'm going to give credit where the credit is due. When it comes to messaging, the micro narrative, the macro narrative, the meta narrative, even if they think it's a lie, they're going to tell it over and over. Right.
And so, that's the thing where we have to continue to talk about this voter education piece, right? Because sometimes we can just be so high level with the policy. Yes. And with like even the example that you shared, like the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare being the same thing. Right. I can guarantee you most people may not realize that. So it's like, how do we break through that? How do we get to those people? Yeah. How do we have that conversation where we say, okay, this policy decision was made and this is what it's going to mean for you. Like your premiums are going to increase, or like we're having a government shutdown right now. Right. And a lot of people, I think, may not realize that this also impacts you. You may not be a federal employee, but I think now seeing what's happening with SNAP, we're starting to have a lot of delays at the airport.
Correct.
No person is evading the impact of this shutdown. Right. And it's like, how do we start to not have to see the consequences before we get people to realize that? Right, because the reality is, as you know, when policies are passed, that person can be long gone out of that particular office, but the impact of the policy can take decades to reverse. Oh, for sure. And some damage is done can never be repaired, right? We really don't know how many people will die because of the shutdown. Yeah.
lack of
Oh, that's so
access to medical
heartbreaking.
care, lack of access to food. You don't know, we'll never be able to, know that, but we
Right.
know that's going to happen.
Right.
We're 37 days,
36
days.
It's
in
officially
this-
the longest shutdown in history.
And yeah, so I think, but to your point about educating people, but to say that the messaging that was given, because they didn't like that Obama passed this health care, they started calling it that to make people like, we don't like Obama, we don't like that. And the whole time you're using the care, right? But yeah, to your point, I think it's the messaging. It's how we just have to drill down to everyday language.
Right.
This is what it means. This is how it's going to impact you. But to your point,
Right.
we can't wait until it gets bad.
Right. We can't do consequences first and then
Right.
try to work backwards. It's like,
Correct.
no, people.
That's just not that's not a smart strategy, right? That's not a good strategy at all. And so one of the things I want to kind of lean into, I know that I believe that the lawsuit, the 3-panel judge in the case in Texas, this lawsuit against the gerrymandered Republican map, that's very unprecedented to have it anyway, is, we're waiting on a ruling, but I'm wondering, with this counter lawsuit to Prop 50, but let's just talk about if this map stands.
Yeah.
What does that mean for Texans?
I think that's also a question that we won't have the answer to possibly until after the next election. So I think we should probably prepare for this map to be the map for 2026. I think we're in a situation where a lot of congressional districts will look very different than how they've looked in the past. Here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Congressional District 33, which is currently a seat with Congressman Mark Vesey, the entire Fort Worth portion of that district is gone, which is a historically minority portion of Tarrant County, and it's now become like this Dallas district that the current congressman doesn't live in.
Right.
And then you can say the same thing for 30 and 32. They've been drawn in a way to where it's very clear about the voters that they want to vote in those elections.
Right.
And I think, I'm also looking at Congressional District 18 in Houston, because even under the last redistricting map, that part of the state was, they tried to combine, at the time, Congresswoman Jackson Lee's district and Congressman Al Green, but were able to negotiate to keep it 2 separate districts. But now it's been back folded into one that a Democrat could win. So we're seeing
But still decreases, representation.
Yes.
Right.
So now you see a tenured congressman now running in a new seat that's actually under a special election right now, where I saw some people on social media, they were like, well, aren't we supposed to be voting for Congressman Green? Why isn't he on the ballot? And it's introducing also this level of confusion, right? Because there's a special election, there'll be a runoff in January, they're filing for the primary right now. There'll be another election next November. So I do think that introduces voter fatigue, because you now have an electorate that's like, okay, what's happening? I don't know what's happening. It's interesting. And I think what's happening in California and other states is, a response to what happened in Texas. But, we can't stop there. We have to look at Indiana. We have to look at Missouri. We have to look at Florida. And all of it, I think, is just unfortunate, because this isn't what the process is supposed to be.
Correct.
So you have your census every 10 years. That's supposed to inform your state's redistricting. We did this already in 2021.
And that map was problematic. Yeah.
But they said the map was fine. They were like, this is our map.
And that was, I won't go back because that's done, but that they should have,
But,
they
here we
never
are
agreed to that.
doing this unprecedented mid-redistricting or mid-decade redistricting, not just here in Texas, but now it's trickling across the whole United States. So what does that mean for this system that we've created for our representative government, if at any time it can be upended? So I think we have to go back to the basics of what is the process, and why is this process important, and why is it important to follow that process? Because now we're seeing it won't just stop with one state. I don't know if it'll change the outcome of the election in 2026. But again, I go back to what I said previously about what people will do to hold their perceived proximity to power or their perceived power. And I think what we're seeing with this redistricting is the result of that. And Republicans and Democrats don't like it. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. You see Republicans in California introducing legislation, eliminating the option to do this.
Right.
Because they're losing their seats. And there are also people who want them to be their representatives and won't have them.
Right.
So I think we just have to have a conversation about, like, why are we doing this? Why is there a process? And how do we not allow politics or holding on to power, not allowing it to upend the process that's supposed to protect people's rights?
Yeah, and it's so layered, right?
Yeah.
It's so layered because what is initiating this power grab to hold on to power is rooted in, and you see it in the rhetoric, it's rooted in this country's demographics is shifting to be a minority, majority white nation. Yeah. And that is causing them to grip tighter to power, right? To control resources, to decide, right, who's deserving and entitled of what resources are going to be distributed, who gets what. And it's very layered, right? It's we have to contend with all of that. And for me, it goes to, we've never really been truth tellers about the nation's history. And we've never done the hard work of uprooting what is deeply embedded in the nation. Right. Now, we've done things like you pass, Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965. We have all these laws that have been passed, but if laws did the trick, we wouldn't still be talking about it today, and they wouldn't be dismantling it because it's something deeper rooted that's going on.
Or the thing that is interesting to me, because, there's a whole Supreme Court case right now around the Voting Rights Act, is like this question I think Justice Kavanaugh raised about, like, well, is the act still relevant today? Mm-hmm. And this whole question, or this idea that we could possibly be past the need for something like the Voting Rights Act, or should we set a precedent where we reevaluate these types of legislation over time if they're needed? And it's just like, is that a serious goal?
Yeah, it's dangerous, right?
It's very
dangerous. And
I'm saying this as somebody, like, I was raised, my dad was born in 1935. He was 30 years old before the Voter Rights Act was passed. Somebody who saw what it was like, who had to pay a poll tax, who had to take a literacy test, who was harassed every time he tried to vote before that bill was passed. And it's like, we have people here in the United States who are still living.
That's
my father's not, but to this day can tell you, like, I live this firsthand. Mm-hmm. We still need these bills and these protections. Yeah. I was a student at Prairie View A&M University and fought for voting rights there. Like, these were college students disenfranchised. And it's like, it's still happening today. Right. And if we take away, like, the bills that at least say or give us, like, very clear rules of the road of, like, how this is supposed to work to make sure all people are equally represented and their rights aren't disenfranchised, we're headed down a dangerous path.
Yes. So I think it's another part that has to happen to, you're saying it too in your own way, is that we have to have a major civics lesson in this country. Now, I took civics in school.
Yeah.
I don't know when they stopped teaching it, but they definitely stopped teaching it.
Yeah.
And so you also don't have, so not only are people not informed on the issues, people they simply don't even know how government works.
Right.
Right. And we did 2 years ago, maybe, when we did our series on how government works. We did like a series on how we did the city, county, and state and federal.
Oh, that's great.
Like, just really, and when we did the state, the people who came to that one, they were like, what? We didn't know all the, one person said, my head hurts. Like, she was like, because they started seeing, like, now what are they doing? Mm-hmm. And they really saw how much power the lieutenant governor has. Yes. Right. And they're like, well, that don't seem right. I'm like, It doesn't, does it? Right? And so, and even down to the municipal level, right? What we did, we showed the 3 levels, you know, your mayor, your city manager, your councilman. Then we said the 4th layer is the citizen.
Right.
Like, you can tell your council person, you want to sit on the Park and Recreations Board.
Yes.
You want to sit on this commission. Like, these are appointed positions.
Right.
But you have to know you have to know who represents you.
Right.
And you have to let them know you're interested.
Right.
So when we say, well, it's an all white, like we were having our fight with the warehouse next door, the truck yard, when Dr. Haynes led that fight, right? We were like, everybody on this commission, white people, white men.
And nobody from this part of the.
So now now you need to look to your rep who represents you and say, well, now you appointed somebody on here. Now, why didn't you appoint somebody look like us? But we don't think about that part of city government, right? So how do we even, and that's why looking at civic engagement is not just voter.
No.
It's all those things, right? And so I think we even need to do more, a better job at that too.
Yes.
Because if nothing else, the Tea Party taught us, you start local. They took everything from the dog catchers to precinct chairs. And because see, once you're elected, and see, go now,
Yeah.
I'm saying this, I'm going to give the devil to do. The strategy was good. It works. And we can't just, and I think also.
I have a funny story. About
Let me hear
Like, they actually helped us in
okay.
when we were fighting for voting rights on campus at Prairie View. The Tea Party helped us. And they gave us their toolkit. Like, this is what grassroots lobbying and advocacy looks like. This is how you build a framework.
It works.
And like, in their interest, they're like, why would they care about HBCU students having the right to vote? Like, they genuinely felt like we lacked representation and we should have the right to, you know, have a voting location on campus. But like, to your point, my biggest push recently is like, I don't even think people realize they have the right to petition their government. Like, pick up the phone.
Right, that's what I'm
Call
saying.
your legislator, call your city council member, call your county commissioner. If you don't like the way your trash man picks up your trash,
make the phone call.
Call.
Right.
Call. If the light is out, my mom used to call Dallas County all the time growing up. She's like, the light on this intersection isn't working. Pick up the phone. Call them. Ask questions, because if you want to know, they have to answer you.
Right.
They have to answer you.
And remembering, and this happened at town hall, this older white gentleman, he was going in. He was like, you done forgot. You work for me. You're there because I mean, and so the rep was kind of looking at him. I'm like, that's it. Like, people need to, and I tell people, so now would you be okay if you was paying somebody to do something? And they went off this, so opposite of what you asked them to do, they did a whole program. They done got with Brooke over there and did what Brooke wanted them to do instead of what you wanted them to do. Would you keep paying them?
Right.
Well, no. Well, okay then. Same thing. And I think and that's what we have to know that it's always, and I always say that the power is always with the people.
Yes.
We just give it up. Or we elect somebody, they'll do a good job. No. It's called accountability.
Yes.
And we have to get back to that.
Yes.
How do we also hold people accountable? And that just doesn't happen every election.
Right.
And we can't just always vote on name recognition when you can look 20 years and I don't see anything.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, these elected officials, they host town halls.
Yes.
They have, offices. Go schedule a meeting.
And
if you can't meet with them, meet with their staff.
Yes.
But go on the record. You need to go on the
Correct.
record and say, like, these are my issues. I'm raising it with you as my representative. And then follow up. Like, what are you going to do about it? Because that's what you're entitled to that.
Exactly.
Whether you voted for them or not, they represent you.
And this, I don't knock on the door, I walk in. It's the people's house. It's the people's house. This belongs to us.
It does.
But we have gotten such where we give that power. They're telling you, don't come here, don't do that. But wait a minute. This the people, whether at City Hall downtown, Commissioners Court, or in Austin.
Yes.
Like, this house belongs to the people. Walk in, hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Speak when you come in. But it's your house. Wow, time always goes fast.
I know,
We're in the
this
classroom.
is so much fun.
Let's thank Priscilla, Barbour, Randle for being with us in the
Thank
classroom,
you,
for giving
thank
so
you.
much knowledge, information today, and wisdom. We got to do, we always say this with everybody that comes, we got to have a part 2. But I certainly look forward to working with you real soon. We'll be in touch with you to bring all that brilliance into what we're trying to build here in the state of Texas. Thank you for being here for another episode of Fannie Lou's Classroom. We'll remind you, we have some new merch out there. You can support the classroom. We can bring amazing guests and have these very substantive conversations, but hopefully doing it in ways where anybody can understand what we're saying. It kind of sparks something in you to see what you can do, how you want to be engaged and be connected with what's going on in your local communities, but also in the world. We also have to think global, but act local, because we also share this world with so many other people, and more global now. Those things impact us directly, i.e. tariffs. Hello, that's a whole nother episode. So listen, buy a Fannie Lou Classroom t-shirt. If you're on your phone, you can go to friendshipwest.org, go to our justice page and purchase a shirt. If you're watching on another device, you can scan that QR code and purchase your Fannie Lou Classroom t-shirt. We also have bags that can match your t-shirt, and you'll see that on the order form. And of course, we're always asking to support our eye care initiative here at Friendship West, where we have schools. I don't like to say we adopt schools, that we walk alongside schools who just need a little extra support. The students need a little extra boost from community. And right now we're working with Haynes Global Preparatory Academy on the campus of Paul Quinn College. You can make a donation that helps us provide some holiday gifts for them, but also throughout the year, we do a lot to support families and also the teachers and administrators. We want to be fully supportive of what can help our children thrive, not only in school, but outside of school as well. And then next week, we're going to take a shift as we head into the holidays, where we're not going to be buying from all these corporate box stores. We're going to withhold our dollars, but so we want to spend them with Black-owned businesses. But we got to have a talk about that. Let's talk about Black-owned businesses and the Black consumer, of how we need to, I'm going to say in some ways, improve how we interact and engage with one another and support each other. So we're going to have a great conversation with Damon at Sankofa, who's been an entrepreneur since I've known him back in the day, so well over 30 years. And then Lauren Gilbert-Smith, who is someone that we know who intentionally, every time she spends money, her first thing is there a Black-owned business I can support? So we're going to talk about that. And we hopefully by then we'll also have maybe a list up where during the holiday when you're shopping that you redirect your resources to Black-owned business to get what you need. And we'll have West Wall Street here on November 30th, where we have plenty of Black-owned business owners who will be here to have their products available, whether that's food or merchandise. We have that for sale on November the 30th as we circulate the Black dollar. So super excited about next week's episode. So make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and make sure you hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. So we look forward to seeing you next week in the classroom.
From the church house.